their trust in the genuine efforts by the governing party at redirecting the country and governance towards sustainable and wholesome development. President Muhammadu Buhari, who performed the ceremony, said, with Nigeria already taken to a new level of enduring progress,
stabilize our great and promising nation.
A certified copy of registered voters for the general elections has been presented to political parties by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, in Abuja.
That will be available at each polling unit nationwide on election day.
The analysis made and the figures, data presented, we are quite satisfied and okay with them.
A federal high court sitting in Port Harcourt has nullified all APC nominations for the 2019 general elections. Presiding Justice James Omotosho, said the party did not comply with the provisions of the Electoral Act with respect to the nominations of candidates. The court also ordered INEC to delist the names of all Rivers APC candidates submitted to it.
And discuss with our clients.
We are going to test it at the Court of Appeal. That's the only thing we can say at this point.
So it's a good day for the rule of law. It's a good day for democracy.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian army has made clarifications on the alleged invasion of Daily Trust headquarters in Abuja and its regional office in Maiduguri. A statement signed by the Director, Army Public Relations, Brigadier General Sani Kukasheka Usman, says soldiers and other security agents were indeed on the premises of the media house, but it was to invite its staff over the lead story in Sunday Trust, which divulged classified military information. The statement further reads that the disclosure of classified security information amounts to a breach of national security, which runs contrary to Section 1 and 2 of the Official Secret Act. Such disclosures, the statement says, afford the Boko Haram terrorists prior notice of plans, giving them early warning to prepare against the Nigerian military, thus sabotaging planned operations and putting the lives of troops in imminent and clear danger. The military assures journalists that the invitation is for investigative purposes only, as the Nigerian army has no intention of muzzling press freedom, but urges fairness and professionalism in the reportage of events. The arraignment of the senator representing Kogi West's Dino Melaye has been halted due to ill health. Melaye, alongside other defendants, would have been arraigned this Monday to take their plea on a 2-count charge of alleged conspiracy and attempted murder.
We are happy that we are giving him an excellent management in liaison with our specialist colleagues.
But if he said he's not fit enough to go to court, we will treat him. We'll give him the best medical attention that we can afford.
And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Jumai after this break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem promptly through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime. We bust syndicates. Whatever crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Madam. Brought us as usual.
As usual. You have no problem.
For the three
you are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah?
Welcome. You take that one. You take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have? You don't have?
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Mobu to come to chocolate rice of made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made.
Correct.
And how they are cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. It is that time of the year when we appreciate all those that mean so much to us. All sponsors, our clients, government at all levels, corporate bodies, advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, political parties, business, and above all, you, our esteemed viewers. Together we made 2018 great. Together we shall make 2019 even greater. And that is why we say thank you. Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year.
Thank you for staying with us. And it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now it's time for us to take some business stories, and here is our business correspondent, Chibobi Walter Naji.
Economic enthusiasts applaud efforts of the present administration in handling the nation's economy in the last 3.5 years, despite challenges. While looking at the economic indices and growth experienced in the manufacturing and agricultural sectors, they noted that the administration focused on the key areas that drove the country out of its worst recession in the last 10 years. The belief is that government's social intervention programs over the last 3.5 years have positively affected the nation's economy.
Because people must have a good understanding of the fact that getting out of recession by itself is a major achievement. You're taking something from negative, you've brought it to zero, then from zero, you now start building up to positive. And coming out of recession, one of the reform programs is empowerment in order to rejig and reactivate economic activity.
Meanwhile, the second week of the year started in the red, with figures on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange recording a minus 0.78%. Here is a graphic representation of the closing figures. With business news, I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
Thank you, Chimobi. Newspaper review is next on Good Morning Nigeria.
right, Mr. Parivera, Baya Twebe is right here with us in the studios. Baya, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kinsley. Welcome back. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Did you attend the Igwe Festival or the Atia Bembem?
What did you call it?
Igwe Festival in Benin and the Atia Bembem at Carnival. Or did you attend the Jakadi at Offa?
No. Well, that's when you say Igwe. Igwe is village.
Okay.
Igwe. That's the annual Thanksgiving by Benin all over the world, and of course it's spearheaded by the Omonoba himself. And it takes place in the cradle of civilization, which is Benin.
Were you there? Answer.
I'm just giving you a background to that. You want me to tell you where I went to in the course of the holidays? Maya, good to see you, and Jumaya as well. Let's begin by taking a look at the paper. Some of the stories we have here are all running stories, but of course they have their own significance. Let's begin with the New Telegraph, and above the name flag of the New Telegraph newspaper, NPAN, that is Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, NGE, that's Guild of Editors, Atiku, IPAC, condemn invasion of daily trusts with a rider army. Soldiers invaded newspaper offices over security breach. Now, below that is a headline, FIRS targets 8 trillion naira revenue from taxes this year. Details of that can be found on page 29. Now, below the nameplate, you have other headlines together, of course, with the lead story. World Bank President Jim Yong Kim abruptly resigns. That's page 29. Governor whips in Aso Rock over Boko Haram insurgency. That's page 12. Teleology pulls out from Nine Mobile. That's page 10. And Zachary, that's the kicker. Buhari's sister's marriage to our family was short-lived and childless. That's page 3. Now, the list stories, some politics, says Tinubu takes full charge of my campaign. That's according to President Buhari. It says, I'll leave a legacy of free and fair elections. Akpabio and Uduaga, Buhari's victory, done deal. And court bars APC from fielding candidates in Rivers. Details of the story can be found on pages 2 and 11. Now, you have a sidebar there, which is also a story of its own. It says distribution of registered voters. There is a printer's devil there. It said 80 million. It's supposed to be 84 million, not 80 million, by the way. And you can see to the left, that's the first column from the left, the most populous states with regard to number of registered voters, not those who have actually. Lagos comes stops with some 6.5 million, followed by Kano 5.4 and Kaduna 3.9. Below that, INEC, politicians buying up PVCs and inducing voters, page 3. These are criminal offenses already, by the way. All right,
and Kingsley, we now go to the Daily Independent. Above the masthead, I am encouraged by Independent Award to do more. Erelu fire me. And a rider, FG ASU reach agreement. Varsities may resume next week. That's on page 44. Below the masthead, we have 91 parties reject INEC's new election guidelines. With a rider, accused electoral body of tampering with 2015 regulations, says strange inclusion will lead to massive rigging of 2019 polls. INEC raises the alarm over new vote buying method. Unveils 84 million voters for 2019 elections. That's on page 4. And then there's the picture message there. Erelu BC fire me, wife of Governor Ekiti State Right, with Ade Ogida, Managing Director, Editor-in-Chief, Independent Newspapers, during the presentation of letter of nomination as Independent Gender Activist of the Year 2018 to Erelu Fayemi in Ado Ekiti, Ekiti State at the weekend. At the bottom plate of the Daily Independent, we have Labour stages mass protest over minimum wage today. That's on page 5. Court bars Rivers APC from 2019 elections, with a rider nullifies indirect primaries of Rivers APC. We will go up to the Supreme Court, says the party. That's on page 4.
Yes. Let's start with the good news for parents and students. The Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Universities may call off this lingering strike by this weekend. This will enable the academic activities to commence in the universities by next week. the strike was started on November 4th. The Minister of Labour and Employment gave indication after a consultation meeting with the Academic Staff Union of Nigerian University. The president of ASU, Professor Biodun Oguriyemi, disclosed that 15.4 billion has been paid to lecturers across tertiary institutions for arrears of salary. Another 20 billion has also been approved by the president for unearned allowances. Now, talking about the issue of security and journalism, the federal government has ordered the military to vacate the premises of the Daily Trust. However, the Guild of Editors, the Newspaper Proprietors Association, as well as the Department for International Development of the United Kingdom, have all condemned the action of the military. David Smith of the DFID has advised the military to engage in consultative dialogue on how best to work together with the media to deliver the people of Nigeria. The spokesman for the military, Brigadier General Sani Usman, says the newspaper disclosed details of planned military operations against Boko Haram terrorists. And he says the publication of classified security information amounted to breach of national security. It indeed put the lives of troops in danger. Politicians and political parties have all condemned the action. Some describe it as a threat to democracy. Others say it's a travesty of justice. Others say it is impunity. In fact, one says it is a violent descent to anarchy. However, SILAC, a non-governmental organization, says the military embarked on an unnecessary show of excessive force. However, it added, journalists should be responsible with the rule of law and avoid acts that could undermine peace and security. And related to that, the governor, Kashim Shettima of Borno State, had appealed to President Muhammad Buhari to do all he could to stop insurgents who now attack communities in his state at will. An emotional governor who came with elders of Borno State said, if the resolutions that were reached at the security meeting that was held last week are implemented, he is very confident that the days of the insurgents will be numbered. The governor appealed to the president to implement the 10 requests which was reached at the security meeting. After a closed-door meeting, the president reassured the governor that the military will be strengthened to neutralize the insurgents, Boko Haram.
All right, Bayo, thanks. I know that the story on the raid on the offices of the Daily Trust, that story is still trended. I mean, you had it in the newspaper review segment yesterday. But that's the few basic principles to further outline. You know, in war, there are rules that govern engagements on the front lines. And there is also what is called the law of armed conflict. Now, similarly, for the media covering wars, there is also a code. In other words, your reports and stories must not in any way endanger, you know, by the troops who are on the line, and shouldn't be, of course, of any assistance to the adversary. That's a very significant point to bear in mind. But the manner and circumstance that surrounded the closure of the offices or the raid on the offices was such that it happened at multiple locations, in Maiduguri, in Lagos, and then here in Abuja. And because of our history, there was a tendency, therefore, for some persons to feel that, again, perhaps this is a crackdown that we used to have under the military. Now, that's what we're talking about in terms of coverage of wars. Let's remind ourselves, in 1991, when we had the first Gulf, when there was the first Gulf War, Nigeria didn't participate in that. At the time that the ground troops were going to move into Kuwait and a part of Iraq, there was an embargo on stories, print and electronic. In other words, unless you had a canned copy from the authorities, you couldn't report otherwise.
So there are rules of engagement, but both the military and journalists must respect one another and take each other into mutual trust. After all, at the end of the day, the military is serving to protect the public, and the journalists are working to inform the public. So there should be no cause for conflict at all. They are seeking intelligence to protect us, and we are seeking information to inform the public. But there has to be a situation whereby we don't endanger each other's profession or activities.
And Bayo, Juma, it's also significant to point out that in recent years, the military have done very well in terms of seeking to improve their relationship with the civil society. We have seen, for instance, I think they have a unit, or whether it's a department, I'm not sure, a unit, known as civil-military relations. And it was headed by General Nicholas Rogers, or Rogers Nicholas, you know, who at some point was in Maiduguri as a theater commander. So we have seen those attempts by the military to smoothen the relationship with civil society, or rather civilians in general. And we hope that those avenues that have been created will continue to be explored.
And I think this present administration has been very friendly with the media. I don't think we've had so many skirmishes over issues on editorial and all that. But the freedom of the press is paramount, but should not be abused.
This serves as a flash for both the military and the journalists. We all need to be cautious in going about our duty. But the other interesting story is coming from INEC. The Independent National Electoral Commission held a quarterly consultative meeting, and that was where it released the voters register for 2019 election and also the electoral guideline. Already some political parties have taken reservations about some elements of it. But the INEC chairman also used the occasion to make far-reaching announcement. He says what is described as incident form, the usage of it has been abolished. In the past, if a voter came and the card reader could not read, there is an incident form that should be completed. This has now been abolished, and the chairman says that a voter, card reader is to confirm, verify, and authenticate a voter. Where it fails, so long as the PVC is confirmed, and so long as the voter's details are consistent with what is obtainable in the voter's register, the voter is to be allowed to vote. The voter register is now improved. It has the details of the voter as well as its photograph. So the dangers of incident form has completely been elevated. But the INEC chairman also drew attention to a development. He says politicians have been in the habit of buying voters' cards, and they are for two purposes. One, to stop voters from voting, and secondly, they are demanding for voter identification number, VIN, with the intention that they could use this for purposes of hacking. And he says it is a futile exercise because you cannot hack the system they have. However, he says the security agencies, the attention have been drawn to it, and actions will be taken against those who attempt to do that, and also those who try to compromise the staff of the Independent National Electoral Commission. He says they are also keeping a close watch on campaign funds.
All right, but these are offenses already been committed ahead of the election. So fine, INEC has indicated what's happening. Now the next question will be, what are the security agencies doing? I think they should set up sting operations and then get those who are involved arrested and prosecuted. Because these are the kind of offenses that will build up, and before you know it, people will be talking about the credibility or freeness or fairness or lack thereof of the elections.
The important thing to note is that INEC at every step has brought information to public domain to enhance its transparency. And it is also good because it gives the political parties opportunities to raise objections and challenge the initiatives, and so that everybody will come together and correct all abnormalities that are identified.
All right, very quickly now, the Nigerian pilot is next for us. They have the story also on FIRS hitting 5.3 trillion naira in tax collection, which it says is the highest in Nigeria's history, targeting 8 trillion naira for 2019. Stripped, that's the headline for the lead story. And of course, you have a number of riders there. So you're talking about President Buhari's tapping of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the head of his presidential campaign. Says he wants to leave democratic legacy for Nigerians, and below that you have the photographs of some of the APC chieftains yesterday. But court nullifies all APC primaries in Rivers. That's page 12. And right at the foot of the front page, you have a number of headlines, some of which, of course, we have already discussed. Army accusing Daily Trust of undermining national security. NLC presses for new minimum wage with nationwide protest today. There's an update on that in our news bulletin. IPOB hits Atumahi, says whatever he's saying there. And Amechi, PDP mocks Buhari over leak tape. NOAA kicks off nationwide voters sensitization.
And the leadership says below the masthead says troops kill over 100 Boko Haram terrorists in Borno State with a rider. RS generates 5.3 trillion in 1 year. And we have the same story on INEC. INEC tightens nose on election rigors, abolishes incident form. That's on page 4. Uncovers new vote buying tricks, pegs eligible voters at 84 million. And then the picture message there with APC stalwarts there raising their hand 4+4. Tinubu takes charge of APC presidential campaign. And then we have the riders that Queensley has just read. Court sacks APC candidate.
Rotimi Amechi still remains the Director General of the campaign organization. But President emphasized that he's determined, reiterated his call on INEC to ensure that elections will be free, fair, and credible. And he said if there is any legacy that he wants to leave as a president, it is that to enthronement of democracy as a system of government. And for democracy to be enthroned, elections must be free, fair, and credible. At the campaign of the People's Democratic Party at Lokoja yesterday, the presidential campaign, Atiku Abubakar, said all abandoned projects will be completed if he is elected. He made appeal that they made a mistake in the past, but they should be given an opportunity to come and correct it. He described the present administration as fake. Meanwhile, the High Court in Port Harcourt has ruled and restrained the Independent National Electoral Commission for recognizing all candidates for All Progressive Congress for the 2019 election. By implication, the contestants for the governorship, State House of Assembly, and National Assembly, Senate and House of Representatives deemed not qualified. The court nullified the direct and indirect primaries of the political parties. And so already indication has been given by the National Publicity Secretary, Larry Issa Oniru, that they will acknowledge the news, but they will study the judgment and make their pronouncement known. A lawyer gave indication that within 10 days, they are likely to appeal the judgment.
All right, Bayo, thank you very much. We don't have enough time now to get into what happened in Gabon yesterday, where a few misguided elements called on the Gabonese to, if they were having their breakfast, to stand up and pour out into the streets. Well, those of them, of course, who were picked up, I'm sure, in the various guard rooms where they are now, they will be getting ready to have their cold breakfast.
Yes,
the
coup failed. They called themselves the Patriotic Movement, and it was led by one Lieutenant Kelly Ondo Obiang, and it was foiled. He has been arrested, and his cohorts too are cooling their feet.
Coups are no longer fashionable.
Not only that, it is the stand of the African Union against coup anywhere on the continent.
All right, so let's go to our editorial this morning. It's from the Daily Sun newspaper, and it's at page 15. So the Pope's Council on Politics and Peace. The editorial begins, says the Catholic pontiff, in his regular New Year message, offered wise counsel and pertinent observations on politics and peace. He spoke to the world as he usually does, but it was as if he had Nigeria in mind, especially given the tense political atmosphere at the moment. The pontiff, the editorial says, was certain that the ultimate end of good politics is peace. The paper writes that they heartily recommend the Pope's message to all Nigerian politicians and indeed all citizens who place value on peace.
Anybody who places values on peace, and I think every person of goodwill will want peace, because without peace, even democracy itself cannot thrive. Therefore, the pontiff's message of peace to the world is very instructive to us in Nigeria, particularly as far as 2019 elections are concerned.
Thank you so much, Bayo TV, for your insight on the papers this morning. It's been a pleasure. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Moving on now, we take our first break. When we come back, Good Morning Nigeria continues.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There is no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
My name's Mr. Arumawa Johnson. I'm one of the community leaders in the State Towns community in Warri Metropolis, Delta State. I am happy that the rail project that started for the past 30 years has come to stay. People in Alaja, Ujewu, the State Town communities cannot travel with the train to Agbo and Itakpe. The train will now carry the goods from Itakpe to Alaja, Ujewu, and Agbo, respectively. I thank God that President Muhammadu Buhari has been able to complete the rail project, which other successive administrators have not been able to do.
And now to the first leg of our conversation for the day, which borders on Nigeria's Armed Forces heroes. To set the tone for the discussion, let's take this background report as put together by our correspondent Oyeyemi Ajayi.
Nigeria is a country with diverse languages, ethnic inclinations, ideologies and cultures, amongst others, but remains united despite all odds. All these have been achieved by the relentless efforts of the gallant military officers who fought and are still fighting for the peace, security and territorial integrity of the country. The Nigerian military's engagement of the terrorist group Boko Haram insurgents in the northeastern part of the country is worthy of note, with many having to pay the supreme price and those living still fighting on to ensure that Nigerians sleep with their two eyes closed.
The attack from the Boko Haram terrorists successfully.
I'm here to fight the insurgency.
Nigerians should expect that we should end this fight as soon as possible.
Yes, 2018, we put up a good fight. But in 2019, we will ensure that the terrorism of Boko Haram is history.
I will remain a professional soldier. I expect Nigerians to support and to pray for us in the fight against insurgency.
My morale is very high. I am good to go.
As the Nigerian Armed Forces continue in the fight to ensure that Nigerians enjoy peace, love and harmony, Good Morning Nigeria today is discussing Nigeria's Armed Forces heroes.
All right, thank you very much, Oyemi Ajayi, for that background. We have with us in the studios to discuss this issue in greater detail Brigadier General Adakole Jones Akpa. He's National Chairman of the Nigerian Legion. Brigadier General Akpa, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you very much, sir.
Also here with us at the studios, I would like to welcome Major Gabriel Adofiku is Special Assistant, of course, to the National Chairman of the Nigerian Legion, and more particularly, he's a consultant on veterans Management, for Veterans Development Management. Major Adafiku, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you.
And also in the studio, we have Major General ECNOB, Director, Veteran Affairs Defense Headquarters. Nice to have you on the program.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, once again, would like to welcome you to this program. And anywhere, anytime, the Nigerian national anthem is being recited, there is a line there that refers to the sacrifices of our heroes past that shall never be in vain. But in terms of our everyday life and everyday activities, how conscious are we as a people of the heroic exploits and indeed the ultimate sacrifice paid by...
Some are still with us here, suffering from various forms of battle fatigue and trauma. These are the people who put their lives on line to serve the country, to make sure that those of us at home have peace to engage in legitimate businesses, prosper, and grow with the country. Now, in the process, some of them get killed. They don't come home. They are incapacitated. And if they had not done that, we wouldn't be here to celebrate what we are doing now. So we must remember them, so that whatever they have done, the sacrifices they have made should never go unrecognized and rewarded. So what we do is to make sure that we assist our country and our citizens to recognize what they have done, so that their efforts are not in vain.
All right, thank you very much. Let's bring in now Major Adofiku, who we earlier introduced as a consultant on Veterans Development Management. I ask you the same question. What is the Nigerian attitude to our military heroes?
If you want a straight answer on that, it's like asking, what is the Nigerian attitude towards its average citizen? And the Nigerian attitude towards its average citizen comes out of the level of indoctrination and understanding of the citizenship status of the individual. We have a society where, since the First, Second World Wars and on to our Civil War, and the various campaigns that we have been involved in as veterans till this time, it's become evident that the veterans, that is the out-of-service personnel, the number has astronomically increased to the point that they are now a significant segment of the society, including, of course, their families, both for those existing and those passed on. The Nigerian attitude has not changed. The average African attitude is reflective in the Nigerian attitude. The Nigerian attitude is a conflict between the modern urban setting and the rural traditional value system of the African. The Nigerian respects the individual. They respect the veterans. They appreciate the veterans. They know the veterans, but they do not have the capacity to address the circumstances of the veteran. And so there is an impression of neglect. There is an impression of disdain. There is an impression of, oh, those guys, they are burdens of government on the rest of society. But I think that is what the current administration of the Nigerian Legion is working hard to turn around, so that the public will begin to understand that, look, these people have done something extraordinary. And because they've done something extraordinary, they need to be appreciated. And for you to appreciate them is not to be sorry for them, but rather, one, integrate them back to society. Two, create space for them to run along with you. Like I always tell my colleagues, when you go out there and you find yourself struggling to join a political party, having been the best of Nigerian, it's an aberration. Rather, the political party should look for you because you have something that many don't have. And permit me to add here that the quality of the veterans in Nigeria has increased more than, in terms of skills, more than any other segment of the human, population in Nigeria in the last 40 years. The armed forces has a run-through of all kinds of skills, from the medics to construction engineering to even social workers status. We have them all there. But because of this background I gave to you, there is a kind of feeling that, look, let's first be sorry for them. Don't be sorry for the veterans. Rather, appreciate them, integrate them, and let us work for a better future for them, particularly those who are alive. And for those who are dead, let's take care of their leftovers.
Talking about taking care of them, thank you, Mr. Gabriel. Back to you, Major General ECN OB. You're the Director of Veteran Affairs Defense Headquarters, and you're still in service. Yes. And year in, year out, we come out to celebrate our heroes, both fallen and living. What happens to their spouse and dependents? We've had so many stories. Are we walking the talk here?
Thank you very much. Yes, as you rightly said, that the Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration, where we say we are celebrating the veterans, has become almost a ritual. But straight to your question, and just as Major Gabriel just said, I think there has been improvement in the sense that we are working towards improving the welfare of the dependents of the fallen heroes and even the veterans. I think I'm happy that the Nigerian Legion chairman is here. We work hand in hand to see that we improve the welfare of the dependents.
Well, General ECN, I'm sorry, I mean, for those of us Nigerians who were not around when ECN was operational, that was Electricity yes. Corporation of Nigeria. So we're having him here, but ECN, of course, those are his initials. I'm wondering, General B, other than just taking a look at the welfare of veterans who are alive and perhaps, their dependents, there is an issue of perception that has, arisen from the brief conversation that we have had. What is it that those who are in service, and indeed the authorities, are doing to help change the perception? Because as you rightly said, at the end of the annual celebration, January the 15th, we wait again until 11 months or so thereafter to launch the emblem appeal week, and wherever you go at the airports and motor parks, they are hustling you to buy the emblem, and thereafter, nothing happens. So the veterans are left to their own devices until the next round of celebrations. What has been done to change this paradigm?
Yeah, we have, in the armed forces, we have, as you know, the Army, Navy, Air Force. Then we have the Defense Headquarters, before we go to the Ministry of Defense. At the various service headquarters, you now find out that there's this scholarship for the children of the late military officers and soldiers. The same thing in the other services. And then their health. Right now, the Defense Health Management Limited, that is the, has inculcated has included the veterans. Before it was not like that. But now, they are now part of it. And then there are children who are below the age of 18. So that is part of it, and some other efforts that are being made.
Brigadier General Adekunle Jones, you were itching to say something earlier. Can you add to what he has said?
Yes, thank you, Madam. He has, like what he has said, just to add, there's cooperation, collaboration between those who are serving and those of us who are out of service. going along the chain he has mentioned, defense headquarters, the services headquarters, even the police, the customs, immigration, all other paramilitary, all other ministries and agencies. We collaborate with them and inject some of these people into their system so that it's not just the emblem launch period alone. It's a continuous thing. And even in housing, you know, we develop housing estates. We are working with so many governments now to give us land, and most of them have promised. Land for agriculture, land for estate development that will include hospitals, and we plan to build special hospitals in the 5 geopolitical zones to cater for the ailments of these old citizens and their spouses, and scholarship through the scholarship board, through the IMF, not IMF, this thing, what do you call it now? ITF, and other people that we're discussing with. So it's not just a one-off thing. It's a continuous something. Probably it was not being done like that before, but we have increased the tempo within the period that I've come to this on board.
One thing that we haven't seen in recent years is the oftentimes very depressing spectacle of veterans who were sleeping in the sun and in the rain to process their pensions. So how well are your members doing with regard to the prompt payment of their pensions?
Thank you very much, sir. And I want everybody to know that's why when we came on board, the first thing we did was to digitalize the processes to cut short some of those things that was happening before. Now you don't even have to come to the headquarters. You don't even have to come to pension office. Everything is worked out, even before you leave service, so that systematically all the things that will be required to make you, to collect your pension, to register, is done. And the Legion now, we have a website, and that website you can be in the back, in the bedroom, just put all your details there. We collaborate seriously with the pensions office, and you are processed. Even you don't have to come here for many things. Of course, there's verification, because we want to be transparent. We want to make sure that we don't have, well, I won't call them ghosts now. We don't have people that just collect these things. So the verification is done once every other year to know the status of those who are still there, those who have gone, and those who they have left behind. And these things are processed quickly. Like I said, the website, can I say it?
Of course.
Okay, the website for Nigerian Legion is www.veteransfednigeria.gov.ng.
Take it again.
www.veteransfednigeria.gov.ng.
All right. Thank you very much, Brigadier General Akbar, for that. But let's return to Major Adefioko. You were talking earlier about the perception of veterans by Nigerians in general. I'm wondering, what would be your response, for instance, to the views that have been expressed in some quarters that perhaps we have to look back into our history to try to understand why the Nigerians do not feel particularly chummy with veterans. Some persons will say, on account of the fact that the relationship wasn't always warm, bloody civilians and the military, the role of the military in politics, and the fact that, you know, they didn't see the military as being their true protectors, rather they tended to see them as either their oppressors or otherwise, whereas, in fact, the military were acting as their protectors. How can this history be worked on so that ultimately there's a much better perception of veterans?
Thank you very much, moderator. I'm excited about what you've just mentioned, because that forms the second prong of the current administration of General Jones Akpa in the Nigerian Legion. How to tune up I won't say change because change might be a hard one, but tune up the Nigerian perception of the veteran in order to bring a closer relationship. Now, there are two things that were not working in the favor of the military or the veterans or the armed forces personnel right from history. The first is the history of the formation of the military in Nigeria. It was a colonial initiative focused on colonial interest, therefore not too comfortable to the Nigerian community. We didn't do a thorough job in changing that perception when we became independent. No blames anyway. Those were the realities of the time. Now, in the course of life, until recently, the military as a family was one sector of the society that will only receive bashings, but didn't have the opportunity of returning explanations. And that didn't help our cause. But we are glad now there is so much taking place. We have military-civilian relationship arrangements. We have regular media briefings. We have media interactions like we are having now. These we believe because in the 21st century, information is prime. And the media is the most effective SPV, special purpose vehicle, that can advance this. And that's why we want to get those in uniform may not have the capacity to be as regular with the media as the rest of us who are out. And so we want to work, instead of working from the front door and getting, you know, the usual social criticisms, we want to work from the back door as veterans and begin to, on one-on-one, educate the society that, one, we are alive, we are living, we are also bloody, if I should use the phrase, and then to let them know that we are not that empty. I get embarrassed when I worked sometime with the African Development Bank, and I get talking, they say, you mean you were a military man? And I said, what the hell are you talking about? I went through the same
associated you with brute force.
With brute force.
And not
so
brains.
Please, yes. I think this is a medium to let Nigerians and the world know that there is life in the military. There is life in the veterans. We have something to contribute to society. Society, use us. We are available for you. We are not finished. Thank you.
Still with you, Major Gilbo, you talked about reintegration into the civilian society and the fear that this is a military man. People really get scared of knowing that you were part of the military and now you are now retired. So as a retired military man and special assistant to the National Chairman Consultant, what efforts are you putting to see that the relationship between you and the civilian population when you retire is intact and that fear is taken away?
Now, first of all, let me say, like I did mention, we're working hard on increased media exposure where we can talk to the masses, get them to be adequately sensitized on the realities of who we are. But more importantly, we also want to change ourselves because, you know, the perception, one of the scriptures says, a man is, as a man thinks, so he is. Over time, even we, the veterans, the members of the armed forces, have come to agree, in quotes, that we're also something else. That is, of course, as a result of the regimentation you enjoy in the barracks. That is the garrisoning culture of the barracks. And when you come out of the garrisoning culture of the barracks into the open playing field, where there are no command and control system in the society, of course, we are like fish out of the water. But we also want to begin to let ourselves, and that's one of the games we're on now. If we economically empower our veterans, if we socially redeploy our veterans to show that there is value even after service, the veterans themselves will begin to manifest the kind of confidence that will arouse a new understanding from the public. This two approach, we want to see how we can play on it. And we're believing that in the next 24 months or so, we'll begin to actively be seen to do it. It's a dual sensitization program, both to the public and to the veterans.
All right, Major Gabriel, thank you very much.
Thank you
Let's
very
bring in again the incumbent Director of Veterans Affairs at the Defense Headquarters. That's General Abi. General Abi, what from your desk, what then would you make of all of this? Some persons will say perhaps this could now be part of psychological operations, and then, of course, also your relationship with the civil military department or unit at the Defense Headquarters. In terms of seeking to help change the orientation. Well, like Major Gabriel says, it's not change. Tune up, public perception of the military to enable them realize that it is not us versus them. It is not. These are not just. Well, of course, we heard one of your commanders say in the past that they were managers of violence, and that the violence is not meant for the citizens, but rather for the protection of our corporate entity. What does this mean?
Yes, let me start from where he stopped, that is Major Gabriel, the changing the perception. As you are aware, we now have a civil military relations department at all the services headquarters and even at the defense headquarters. That's what we call winning hearts and minds of the citizens. And that is why if you see the army, for instance, carrying out operation, or not operation, or exercise, or we're having an Army Day celebration, or all those things, we have time to attend to the public, maybe extend health services, free health services, and all those things. And then you go to some places, sink boreholes and all those things, just to let them know that we are the same. But one other issue is that maybe because of the military incursion into politics, and up to today, many Nigerians are still seeing the military in bad light. And this is almost 20 years now. I think it is high time we left that impression, I mean, the Nigerian populace, and begin to see the good aspects of the military. Then back to, what was the last question, please?
Well, you're already addressing that,
yes,
in terms of working on the hearts and minds of the people, yes, with regard to tuning up their perception, exactly, of the military as, yes, the true, guardians, of our territory and ultimately of our lives.
Good. And then the other question you asked about, going to retirement, the fear. In my department, that is the Veteran Affairs Department, we organize, workshops, for those who are still in service. Because you find out that most of us in the military, the way we are brought up, we don't even have business ideas and financial management, so to say. But with what we have observed, we now organize workshops for those still in service so that they know better. And that fear of when I get out of the service, I'm on my own, I wouldn't know what to do. So we bring experts, professionals who come and deliver lectures. Then we have workshops, and then they are, carried along.
All right. Thank you very much, General B. Jemai, we have some tweets that have come in. A number of tweets have come in already from our viewers. Let's go through some of these tweets, and then we'll continue with the conversation. Chibuzo has this tweet. It says the Nigerian government should make joining the forces attractive by ensuring that the armed forces are not just about fighting wars. Let the government celebrate both the living and the dead heroes. God bless Nigerian armed forces.
And Abraham Chijile says, good morning, Nigeria. Our armed forces heroes should be well taken care of for the job well done.
Festus Akimboyewa tweets, now we should cultivate the habit of helping our armed forces heroes, many of whom have died or lost their camaraderie due to life-changing injuries. Government should also partner with civil society to ensure the physical and emotional rehabilitation as well as recovery of our veterans and their families.
And Suleiman Babagana says Nigeria should learn from countries where armed forces are given adequate attention ranging from remunerations and so on. Taking their dependence into cognizance is what a responsible government should look into.
All right, those are the twists where we have one here from Abraham Chejile. It says, welcome back, Kingsley. Even though I'm a diasporan, you should keep my Benin citizenship certificate because I was born there. All right, no problem, Abraham. About talk, babe. All right, so those are the twists that we'll take in the meantime. But let's return to our guests. Brigadier General Akpa, one of the issues that, again, this is probably taken off from public perception. Do we have an understanding of some of the medical issues arising from the veteran class? Because elsewhere, you read about post-traumatic stress disorder, particularly in societies where veterans are traced and tracked. Some of them who behave in certain ways, they find ways to explain and then find ways of addressing those things. Do we have that, or we just think that, a soldier is whoever he is, so let him face his consequences?
Thank you very much. And this question or this discourse is very apt at this moment. That's why initially I had mentioned that in our program, we are looking to establish, with the cooperation of various state governments, to establish 5 centers in the 5 geopolitical zones, peculiar, hospitals, specialist hospitals that will attend to some of these things. In some of our teaching hospitals, they have limited areas where they attend to this. Unfortunately, some of them, again, will have to go outside the country. But these are things that we are discussing with we are affiliated with the World Veteran Federation. We are discussing with the various associations all over the world. They will assist us to establish some of these areas within these 5 geopolitical zones that will attest and address issues relating to the trauma, not just only at war. Even some of them who come home, they see themselves, they are not accepted. They go through all sorts of things you cannot imagine. Some of them, when they even go for these operations, they come home, their families are scattered. Some lose their wives. Some, when they come, they even see new children that they don't even know about. Of course, on the other side, too, some of them, when they go for these areas of operation, they also meet some people. So there are so many things that happen to the military within conflict, even out of conflict. So it is very necessary to reduce the cost, to establish these zones with cooperation of the government and our other affiliated bodies all over the world. So I want to use this opportunity to appeal to some of our philanthropists, business people, the entire society. Let all hands be on deck so that these dreams will come true sooner than later.
Well, for a dream to come true, there must be an understanding of what the issues are. Some of them you've already ticked up, but I would like Major Gabriel to also address this. In terms of having a general public understanding of the matters arising, but listen to what Brigadier General Akbar was saying. In or out of conflict, soldiers are on the front lines, either in peacekeeping operations. We had them in Liberia, we had them in Sierra Leone. We're having them now, on the front lines against Boko Haram. I mean, a man or a woman who is hearing all kinds of missiles whiz past his or her ears, and then you come back home and it's a different world that you face. So do we have a clear understanding of the psychological, psychiatric, or medical issues or challenges that our heroes actually face, and how, therefore, to begin to address them?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kingsley. I first, permit me to state here that this phenomenon is a global issue. It's not just restricted to Nigeria alone. In fact, if there is anything that a society like the United States is facing today, is this PTDI issue. That's the post-traumatic, post-combat traumatic disposition syndrome. The medical, it's not a thing you will take in abstract, expecting just the military or the armed forces to provide solution to. It's a societal phenomenon. These people, when they come out, they do not become a problem to the military. They become a problem to the society. And to deal with this post-combat trauma situation, look, the soldier is built on two fronts. He's built in the uniform and the equipment he carries, physical. He's built also on the mental modification for combat service. Now, the society, the institutions of learning are beginning to appreciate that there is a need to study on how can you unwind such a mind to the non-combat. You built him into a fighting machine. You need to unwind him back into a living machine. That is a global phenomenon. And that is an area we feel should be an attention study area for our institutions of learning. Before you go to the curative aspect, the curative aspect is what is the world developing? But I'll tell you, the curative aspect is not just medical, it's also sociological and indeed psychological. Sociological in the sense that the society, like we earlier said, should begin to appreciate that these guys who go out there in combat, they are our brothers and sisters. And we receive them, we welcome them. I'm yet to see a society. Those days when I was a little boy, my father used to be a soldier. And when he came back, people stand and welcome him. Of course, there was the biscuit and jam and something he used to carry in his Congo kits. Today, do we really have a social reception for our soldiers when they come back? Those days, when you come back, a soldier, right from his discharge point, a letter is given to him. Where do you want to locate after your service? I want to go home. They give him a letter to the district officer, the DO. And the DO will receive him. And the DO will discuss with him. Do we have that society? This is where you give roles even to our traditional rulers. You need to educate them that these guys who go out there, when they come back, they should be received. That's the psychological bit, socio-psychological bit of it. But for the PCDTI, the post-combat traumatic disposition, it's a new field of medicine. And the world is fast developing on that. All we need to do is key in first, create space for us in our regular curative health delivery system so that they can be addressed when they surface themselves, surface in our society. In the United States, for example, today, I'm sure every other day you hear news like somebody walked up to a shopping mall and opens fire on everybody. He's not crazy. He's suffering from this kind of ailment. Or, like you normally do, for some of us, though on a lighter note here in Nigeria, sometimes I shout at my family members because there is no more unit to be commanded. And when they remind me, Daddy, you're out of service, I say, okay, I'm sorry, but can I have my next meal? You know, that kind of thing. So thank you very much.
Mr. Gabriel, thank you very much.
Now, I would like to, with a good sense of humor there, you know, Nigerians are resilient people, and our sense of humor is, you know, known all around the world. Right. And I'm coming to you now, Major General ECNOB. What is next? How do we treat these people? Because before we treat post-traumatic stress disorder, we have to look at what aggravated it in the first place. Like our military boys being in the war front for 1 year, 2 years without going home, you know, without seeing their family, in a place where there's network. And when they come back, they are shattered. They are strangers. This medical outreach you're doing for your military, does it include, is it an inclusive, you know, a medical therapy with their family so that they can be able to talk and relate well? We are running out of time sharply.
Okay. You said what is next?
Yes, what is next?
Yes, and you've already answered the question because before we go into that, you have to know the causes.
Yes.
And like, as you also said, in battlefront, some overstay, some, you know, they don't have any contact, you know. But these issues have been addressed by what we call, relief. So we now create time, create opportunities for those who have been in the forefront to be rotated. To be rotated maybe after, though in most cases it's not too possible, too easy because of all the factors involved, logistics and everything. But the normal thing is that maybe after 6 months or a year, a soldier in the war front is supposed to be given relief. Some others will come to the front and then they are relieved. We are trying to address, the military is addressing that, within its limits. And then, okay.
All right. Well, gentlemen, just before we say thank you for being with us on the program, I'm sure General ECNOB, as well as the chair of the Nigerian Legion, there are a number of issues that have arisen here. Somebody would say, listen, you have a lot of work to do to bring the rest of society up to speed with the necessity of catering for the interest of our veterans. That the Nigerian Legion are not just the old security guards that you see, whom you call old soldier, but that the lifestyle, the orientation of these persons in the past and what they are to society today, these are all the things that matter to us. It's on that note that I would like to thank you, gentlemen, for being with us, and that you have been true heroes. And of course, you and your colleagues, living and past, and your families have done a great deal to ensure that the rest of us are safe. I would like to thank the National Chairman of the Nigerian Legion, Brigadier General Adakole Jones Akbar. Thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Appreciation also to Major Gabriel Adafioku, who is a consultant on Veterans Development Management. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
And also Major General ECNOB, Director of Veterans Affairs at the Defense Headquarters. Thank you for being with us on the program this morning.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. So it's on that note, of course, we end our first topic for conversation this morning. We'll take a short break. When we return, the next one will be Beyond Fake News.
Hold it! Me, I don't cover my hand from oil bunkering.
General, what you going to yarn? What did the yarn say? I don't understand, though.
Because they spoil our water and our environment. And they cause our people serious harm. Military said, you know good. Me, I not do against Sam. Because why? Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Thanks for staying with Good Morning Nigeria, coming to you live on the network service of the NTA. And now to our second topic for discussion, beyond fake news. There's a growing trend in the media circle where which has caught the world's attention. It is the phenomenon of fake news. This trend has taken over the information superhighway in a manner that could better be described as an epidemic. With this growing threat to societal growth and development, efforts have been stepped up to check this looming danger.
All right, now joining us in the studios to discuss this topic of Beyond Fake News is Jamie Angles, who is Director of BBC World Service Group. Jamie, pleasure to have you with us.
Good morning, nice to see you.
Okay.
Compliments of the season.
Why should the world be concerned about fake news?
Well, I think fake news is a huge problem in all parts of the world. Each different part of the world has a different set of issues. But we know, for example, here in Nigeria, heading into a set of national elections, there's often a particular problem around fake news and arguments about fake news during elections and moments of political importance. So the BBC is doing a series of events and we're broadcasting content to help Nigerian audiences decide what is real and what is fake, to encourage people to behave more responsibly in terms of sharing things that they suspect may be fake news, and also to kick off a national debate here in Nigeria about how best to improve the climate around fake news here.
We understand that the BBC organising a conference titled Beyond Fake News. What do you intend to achieve?
Well, we've done this in a number of different parts in the world. So we did some similar work in India and also in East Africa. And we really wanted to encourage, as I say, this national conversation about how can you improve standards of media literacy here in Nigeria. So what I mean by that is people understanding a bit more, being taught in schools and within their own families about what differentiates good quality news from poor quality news. But also the kind of uniquely Nigerian elements of this. So what's driving Nigerian audiences to actually share content that often they know might be slightly suspect? And we've done some original research on that. And some of the things we found are really interesting, which is that often people share fake news on their social chat apps. You know, people might have a WhatsApp or a different chat app, have a big family group, but they would share a piece of fake news, kind of knowing that it's not quite right, but expecting a peer group or family member maybe to come back and say, no, listen, I know that that's wrong. And that shows that people often have good motivations for sharing fake news. They're doing it because they're trying to be helpful, to try and find out whether something's true or not. But the results can be quite toxic because it means that a completely fake piece of information can spread around the whole country of Nigeria in just a few hours' time. And that's a really serious problem.
Well, the phenomenon of fake news has been aggravated, of course, by the rise of the social media. How much of a challenge is this to the traditional media?
Well, it's a threat and an opportunity, isn't it? I suppose it's a threat because overall it creates a poor climate where it's very easy for fake news to spread, but it's an opportunity because I think for a trusted news broadcaster like the BBC, I think our message is if you're not sure if something's true or not, go and check on the BBC. And that's probably true of the NTA and the other big national broadcasters.
It's very true, not probably true. Very true.
That people want to go back to the organisations that they trust and that they know, like NTA, have really strong journalism values. And I think one of the problems with fake news is that people have not understood that journalism is an expensive and time-consuming business, that it has strong professional standards. People need to check and verify news events properly. And if they go to NTA and indeed to the BBC and other trusted news providers for that, then they can be sure that what they read is true. So I think it is an opportunity for big media organisations, but we have to help people understand why what we publish is true and the values and processes that underpin that.
The social media has been at the forefront of criticism by so many people, you know, on fake news. And in Nigeria, do you think that we are not using the social media the way we should?
Well, I think social media is a wonderful opportunity, isn't it? Because it democratizes the process of news. It also means that news is accessible to hundreds and thousands of audiences who can never get it before. But it is difficult because often a computer decides what news that you see. So maybe if you're on Facebook or another social app, the decisions about what bits of news that you see are taken by an algorithm and not by a real person, a real human editor. And for those and other reasons, the quality of what you see on social media can sometimes be really poor. And I think the principle of media literacy is for young people and young audiences to understand that. You know, we're launching a TV program in Africa, including here in Nigeria, called Fact Finders, which is very much about helping young audiences to understand what is real and what is fake and the process and principles that underpin that.
Well, let's return to the forthcoming conference by the BBC, or workshop or seminar on Beyond Fake News. Who is participating and what is the intention?
So I think the intention is really to kick off this national debate and for the BBC to present some of the findings that we've discovered through the extensive research that we've done here in Nigeria, looking at the behaviours of young audiences. So we've got an eminent panel. Professor Wole Soyinka will be there. The Vice President is coming to make a speech as well. And the event will be streamed live on the Facebook sites of all our language service sites, as well as covered on bbc.com and on BBC World News. So it's a media conference, but as I say, we've undertaken this kind of work in a number of countries where we operate. And particularly for here in Nigeria, it's worth people remembering that there are 34 million people in Nigeria who consume the BBC every week, and it's our single largest country audience, something I'm very proud of. So we feel a particular responsibility to kick off the debate here, to put in the facts about what we've learned, and to ask Nigerians and Nigerian media and government to decide what's the best way forward for you guys in your own country.
One of the tips that you gave with regard to the outcome of your research in other countries is that people share fake news, not because they want to rebroadcast fake news, but because they are seeking confirmation through some gatekeeping mechanism amongst families or chat groups. What else did you find in your research elsewhere around the world?
Yeah, that's right. And that's why I mentioned it before, because I think people's motivations can be good, but the effect of them sharing to seek validation is that they just end up sharing it more and more widely. I think one of the sort of shortcut tips is like, if in doubt, check. So if something doesn't seem right or doesn't feel right, it may well not be right. So check with a trusted news provider. And I also talk about take care before you share. You know, don't just share news on social apps just because it seems sensational. If it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. And also to take care about people posting videos and pictures that purport to be of one specific incident, but may in fact be taken in a different month, in a different country, or in even a different year. We're seeing a lot of that, videos and pictures that are either faked or have just simply been lifted and transposed from one story into another. And chat apps make that content very easy to share, but very difficult to check.
Yes, you see, this is one of the major issues that scholars and indeed observers of the social media scene have referenced. The immediacy that comes with chatting the social media oftentimes could be a hindrance to fact-checking. I mean, you get a message, and who's going to be that? Who is that gatekeeper that's going to say, let me fact-check? Unless you're an editor, for instance. But I get this, so I send it to Jumai. Jumai sends it to Jamie. Jamie sends it back to Kingsley, and on it's just going. So what do we do? Of course, if you have a professional eye, you can know to say, hey, listen, this is toxic. You know, this shouldn't go beyond here. But for the ordinary folks, the consumers of media products, how can they now scale the psychological barrier of being their own editors by fact-checking?
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is why BBC, the BBC runs its own reality check strand, so we'll be doing that during the Nigerian elections and checking disputed facts and claims in the election process, for example. But you're absolutely right that the resources required to carry out proper journalism, public service journalism, are quite high, quite intensive, quite expensive, and actually often it's larger media organisations who can do that fact-checking. So we would encourage people to go and check with a trusted provider where there are disputed facts, and not to immediately trust anything that's being claimed, even if people are posting what purports to be some evidence. That evidence could be fake, or it could simply be wrong or lifted from a different story altogether.
Well, going to, Jumai, I just wondered, going to a trusted news provider also harks back to what you said earlier with regard to the challenge of the social media, a threat and an opportunity. Is it also necessarily the case that you have found amongst the traditional media a certain creepy laziness that are certain traditional media themselves also relying on social media? In other words, instead of you having boots on the ground to do the footwork for you as a traditional media, there's greater reliance on the social media, and therefore a certain laziness. So to whom then do you go?
I don't think it's laziness. I think it's a couple of things. It's partly that journalism is expensive to produce, and certainly for both state-funded journalism organisations and for commercially funded, it can often be difficult to have enough resources to check all the things that you want to check. But also because journalism now is often about looking at videos and pictures that other people have posted. It's not stuff that your own journalists went and gathered. And, you know, the time was that the only people who could make video were journalists with very expensive TV cameras, and they had to go to a place and film something and check it, and they knew that it was true. So many African stories we deal with, so our Africa Eye investigative program, for example, recently did an investigation into this video in Cameroon that purported to show an execution of prisoners. And that was a very typical story, because we were able to debunk the government's version of the story by proving that certain facts were the case by analysing video. But it wasn't video that we ourselves had gathered. And one of the things that I find really interesting is so often now the process of journalism is about evaluating third-party video or stills that somebody else has gathered. Your journalists weren't there. You don't know if it's true. And so you have to try and do the checks after the event. And I think that's a really interesting new pattern, isn't it?
Okay, Mr. Jeremy, let's talk about generational change. You know, the 2000 to now, most of them have technology at their fingertips and they can use it in whatever way. I hope they are part of the conference. And what are they going to take away from the conference?
Yeah, I think that's a very good challenge. I mean, when I think about my own children at home, they're all teenagers and they barely use television in the way that we all grew up using television. You know, they're always on their phones. They consume all their news on the digital platform at first. And I think for young audiences, the digital world is incredibly exciting, but we know that it has risks, right? It has risks around their own personal safety and welfare and safeguarding, but it also has risks around not understanding how news is produced. So I think that's absolutely right. We want, we want a viewpoint from young people at the conference, and the young participants in the conference will tell us, older media executives, what we need to know, because actually often the way that people in their teenage years or their early 20s are using social media is completely different from the way that you or I would use it.
Well, still on the social media, there was the rise of citizen journalism at some point, because again of the limitations of the traditional media. You couldn't possibly have all the resources, human and material, to deploy, and then you had citizens, send you their reports, video clips and so on and so forth. Is that still relevant in dealing with fake news?
I think there's nothing wrong with that as a principle, but I think that actual trained journalists have to be involved somewhere in the process to check things, to verify things, and to ultimately be accountable for what's published. So I think one of the weaknesses of the citizen journalism model is that anyone can post anything, and there's not necessarily a professional organisation or a professional series of standards underpinning that, and that means that it is open to abuse. So I'm all in favour of people posting their own content and saying when they've actually been an eyewitness and seen an event and gather the material, as long as a journalist can actually check that after the event. Because when we talk about media literacy, it's about the understanding that to check and to prove that things are actually true and have happened does require journalism resources, and it requires professional skills and training.
From your surveys elsewhere around the world, is it necessarily the case that the law is taking quite some time in catching up with the consequences of fake news? I think that's absolutely true, and it's as true in the UK, in the European Union, who are having a big discussion at the moment about how to regulate the big platforms like Facebook. That's as true there as it is here in Nigeria or in India, for example. Lawyers, you'll have seen there was a famous hearing in the United States a month or two ago where the legislators interviewed Mark Zuckerberg, and it was very clear that this was a very older generation of old, mainly men, in the 60s and 70s and 80s, talking to someone from a platform that they didn't really understand. They didn't know how it worked. They didn't understand what its commercial model was. And so just like those congressional hearings in the United States, we have similar challenges both here in Nigeria and elsewhere in the world.
Okay, now talking about the conference, how long is it going to last? And I hope it's not going to be a one-off conference. Are you going to follow up on the participants to see how much they translate what they've learned in the conference to the general public?
Absolutely, we want to do that. So it's a one-day media conference which we're broadcasting on the BBC's individual language platforms, so on BBC Hausa, for example, and also people can read about it on bbc.com. But you're absolutely right that over the course of the the election here in Nigeria. We're going to be hosting a series of debates. We're going to be hosting the regional governor debates and elsewhere to try and show that the BBC has a really important role in reflecting this amazing democratic event. Your elections are of international significance, not just nationally important here in Nigeria. And everything we're doing around quality news, trusted news and combating fake news, we'll be playing that out throughout the election campaign and hoping that audience members will turn to the BBC to check when there are those disputed stories that they don't quite know whether a claim is true or not.
Talking about the elections, you've done a lot of research on Nigeria and the election. What's your insight into the 2019 elections and how do you think it's going to play out?
Well, that's a bit beyond my area of expertise. I mean, I'm delighted to be here in the sort of build-up to the elections because you get this incredible sense of what a vibrant democracy Nigeria is. And that's why I just said that your national elections are an event of international significance. So it's something that will be reported on by the BBC, not just in the UK, but also for our international audiences in English and other languages around the world. I suppose all I'd say is that, you know, Nigeria has been a great experiment in democracy, and the fact that the democratic transition has taken place successfully here in Nigeria in successive elections is a really powerful message to the rest of the world about when democracy can work. Like every democracy is not perfect. Lord knows the British democracy is not perfect. And we're living through tough and challenging times at the moment in the UK. So I love to see other people's elections play out, and I'm really looking forward to finding what the result is going to be.
All right, Jimmy, what lies beyond fake news?
Well, I think in time, the thing we have to do is to educate younger audiences who are coming up through school and in their families about the values and processes that underpin journalism, this idea of media literacy, and how to be more careful, cautious and responsible about what they share. And I think the solution lies with the next generation. And if we can solve that in countries like Nigeria, we'll go a long way towards solving the problem globally.
All right, that's one. But just before we sign off with you, let's return to what happened last year. We had some crisis in parts of Kaduna. And the BBC, of course, did indicate that part of that crisis was stoked by the circulation of some fake videos and pictures with regard to who had shot home or had killed home, and so on and so forth. How would you, from your findings, advise traditional authority, or traditional media as well, to have contemporaneous response to such fake videos or fake news in general as they are circulating that have the potential of stoking crisis?
I think that's absolutely right. So first of all, I think governments and societies need to decide how to regulate digital publishers to make sure that fake videos can't spring up very, very quickly and be republished everywhere. But I think also it's really important for mainstream media organisations to call out when they see a particular fake video that they know is fake. It's important to publish a story about that and say, actually, this thing that everyone's sharing is not true. So often the job in the past of journalists was to say what we knew had happened. But sometimes now it's the job of journalists to say, this thing is circulating and we know that it's not true. And I think that's a way in which our lives as journalists have changed.
All right, Jamie Angus, Director of the BBC World Service Group, we'd like to thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria
Thank you for having me. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you for coming.
All right, so that does it for our conversation number 2 on Good Morning Nigeria today. Let's go over now to our complimentary segments, and here is our sports desk.